Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here today and teach you a sikha that I really remember since I went to Israel to learn when I was 13. I remember my grandfather every time when it was Parshas Vayeshev, my grandfather would say the same Torah every time, and I remember remembering it. It's connected to water and to Torah. And before we start, I want to ask a few questions about our own life that the sikha will help resolve. So, first of all, we see that the whole Chassidus came to be because people had a hard time sticking to Torah and mitzvahs and feeling happy with it and doing it fully. When the Haskalah came and everything, people felt like to be satisfied they need something else, and that's why Chassidus came to the world. But we see that in our generation, a lot of people still have a hard time with Torah and mitzvahs, and not only because they have like a problem with it, but a lot of people have like a hard time feeling satisfied only with Torah and mitzvahs. And I have a little story to say about this. You all know the joke that someone goes on the street and he tries finding parking, and he's a not from Jew, and he says, okay, if I find a parking, I'll put on tefillin. And he finally sees a car going out, and he says, oh, whatever, God, forget about it. I already find the parking. And I feel like sometimes we are like that. We find ourselves doing the same thing, where we do this like selective avodas Hashem. When I'm here, I do Torah mitzvahs, and when I'm not here, I don't do it. In Hebrew, you say, dati le dati. I'm from according to my own opinion. And sometimes it comes from like a genuine place of like not putting too much in ourselves, which obviously we need to do Torah and mitzvahs step by step and not go too fast. But still, Torah is here to satisfy us. Torah is here to do something good, to make us happy. Why is it that we feel the need to go to other things? And I feel like it comes from a place a lot of times that we feel empty inside. And we want to understand, why is this? Why do we feel empty inside? For example, I learn in Batsheva Learning Center, and I learn all day, and still, like after learning, I don't do bad things, but I go home and learning is tiring, and I don't know, I open the news, I look at the news, and sometimes I ask myself, why is this? Why do I feel the need to like empty out, and like my free zone is like not Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs is supposed to be the thing that calms me down and that grounds me and that makes me happy. And yeah, also Torah is supposed to do something that is like, does love between each other. And we see that a lot of times it doesn't cause the opposite, but we see that also in firm communities, and also people who do Torah mitzvahs, they also have a lack in Avos Yisrael. I remember when I was younger, I heard the news from like someone else who was listening to it, and I remember like, I don't want to say all the details of the story, but like that in a certain community, like from Rav, he was very successful, and he had a lot of successful friend rabbis, and he opened this business, and he was a very smart person, he was very learned, and he opened this business, and he became very successful, and his friends got really mad that he's more successful than them, and they like planted a whole plan of how to make him do something bad on camera, and they like made it famous, and like they basically planted such a bad thing for him to be less successful. And I remember watching it, and I'm like, how is it even possible if these people are such learned people and they learn Torah and mitzvahs, and they see how every Jew is precious, and how could it even be that something like that happens? And we see this also within ourselves. There's always problems. And obviously we all have nefesh habahamis, and there's always gonna be problems. But still, like there's something that I feel like is not like, something is like lacking. So this Sikha of the Rebbe really opens the doors for us to see the light of Torah in a different way. We see this also in the story of Yosef in Parshas Vayeshev. The brothers of Yosef were not bad people. They were not like, they were keeping Torah mitzvahs, and they were big Talmidei Chachamim. I don't know if they were considered tzaddikim or not, but like they were very important people and learned people. And I remember always reading the Parsha and asking myself, how is it possible that they did such a horrible thing. They wanted to kill Yosef. And yes, the Rebbe says in the Sikha too that they did have a reason for why they wanted to kill Yosef. They had like a halachic reason. But we know that even in Beis Din, when they're supposed to kill someone, they do a lot of investigations and things, finding ways of how to not to kill that Jew. There was barely times when that ever happened. And here, yeah, they had halachic reasoning, but if they were more like true, I don't know, they would have found a way not to kill him. And then one of the brothers gets up and he's like, okay, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him to a huge pit and we won't know what happens with him till the end of his life. He might die there. And this is very hard to understand. And this is a big question. Really, we want to understand. To understand this, we want to first understand what is the quality of Torah, what does Torah give to us, and why is Torah so important? Also, how are we built from our inside that Torah is supposed to help in our life? So in the beginning of our parsha, there is a pasuk that says about the pit that Yosef was thrown into, V'habai rek ein boi mayim. And Rashi asks a very important question. Why does it say also that the pit is empty and also that the pit had no water? If my mother wants to tell me that there's no food on the counter, she's not going to tell me the pot is empty, there's no food in it. I mean, if she likes talking, then she may, but she probably wouldn't. Why does he say that? And also, why does he specifically say water? Like, what's this whole deal? So Rashi says a genius answer, and Rashi says, it says there's no water, but there is scorpions and snakes in that pit. That's why it said that there's no water and that the pit is empty, to say that there was no water, but there was other things like scorpions and snakes. And I'm like reading this and I'm like, what? Why scorpions and snakes? Yeah, when there's like dry place, that's what usually happens. But like, what does this even mean to us? We know that everything that is said in Torah means something to us. What is this? So really, there's a lot of things that the Torah is compared to. One of the things is water, but generally Torah is compared to food all the time. This is not because Jews like eating, but this is because food, in Tanya, we read that food has a very important quality to it. We eat food, and that food becomes a part of us. It becomes a part of our flesh, a part of our blood, besides for the parts that don't become a part of us. It mamash becomes what we are. And Torah has the same quality. When we learn Torah, and generally when we do Torah mitzvahs, it becomes a part of us so strongly that you could never separate it from us. It's like it becomes who you are. So the Rebbe explains in the Sikha, when there's no water, there's scorpions and snakes, and water is compared to Torah. So when there's no Torah, there's scorpions and snakes, and we know snake is, and also Scorpios, it's like our nefesh habahamis, it's like the worldly things, the things that are more negative. And with Adam and Chava, it was also the snake who made the Aveira happen. And that's what it represents. And the Rebbe says a very nice explanation about this, and we'll understand this through a story. I don't remember all the details of the story. I tried looking for it, but no one gave me a clear answer. But the story is about Reb Mendel Futterfass. Reb Mendel Futterfass, he was a mashpia in a yeshiva after his whole complicated life. And one time a bacher came to him, to his house for like a meeting. This bacher had a very hard time with like understanding Torah. When he was learning, it like didn't really enter his mind. Like Timtum Amayach kind of thing. And he sits down, and before the Reb Mendel starts talking to him, he asks him if he wants tea. I forgot to mention this kid really liked reading the news in the newspaper. Then that was like the taiva to read the news. And Reb Mendel asked him, do you want water? It says, no, I'm okay, I'm fine. But Reb Mendel brings water anyways, and he puts down a cup in front of him, and he starts pouring the hot water, and it was really hot. And the bacher says, okay, it's fine, I don't need more. Like, the cup was almost full. But as if he didn't hear, he continues pouring the water. He pours the water and he pours the water and he pours the water, and the water starts spilling out of the cup, and the water spills on the kid's feet till he like moves back and he's like, ow, this hurts. And then Reb Mendel puts down the water and he starts explaining to the Bacher, you have a cup. You are like a cup. You could fill up with something, but you're going to have a limit to what you could contain inside of you. And when your head is going to be full of news and things that it's not supposed to be filled with, the Torah is not going to be able to enter your head anymore. Obviously, this doesn't come to show us the negative part, and a Jew always has a way, and there's always tshuva, and you could always learn more and add in the good. But to the contrary, we want to say the opposite, that when we learn Torah, when we do Torah and mitzvahs, when we are connected to Hashem, then there's not going to be place for something else. The question is, how does that need to be done? How could we fill ourselves up with Torah in a way that there's no place for other things? Obviously, again, this doesn't say not to do things that are mundane, because that's our goal, Dira B'Tachtainim, to make Hashem feel comfortable in this physical world. But it's more about what is our main goal in life. What is our kach? So the Rabbi explains that's why the pasuk says va'bayrek ein bo mayim, and the continuation rak nachashim va'akravim, scorpions and snakes. There's no middle. It's going to be either that's the leading thing in your life or that's the leading thing in your life. And there's not going to be a middle ground. And we're going to understand that later. Why is that way? But it's the same idea with the Baal Shem Tov's famous Dvar Torah about V'sartem V'avadatem, one of the commandments. The Alter Rebbe explains that when we don't worship Hashem, we right away worship something else, because it comes one after the other. V'sartem, you go away from Hashem. V'avadatem, you worship other gods. And you ask yourself, why? There's like atheism, there's like middle ground, there's I'm a mundane person, I don't believe in anything. But this comes to show us there's no such a thing. Every person has something they believe in. Every person has a God, so to say. The question is, what is that going to be? Is that going to be the football team that you like? Is that going to be clothing that you worship? Is it going to be your own mind that you worship? Is it going to be, I don't know, your friends? Is it going to be, materialistic things? Or it's going to be Hashem. And it's going to be one thing. And this we already see in Tanya, where the Alter Rebbe says that we have a Nefesh HaBahamis and Nefesh Elokis, and they are in a war on one body. And there's no two kings in one body. In one place. You can't place two kings. We see, and I'm not here against cooperation, but we see also, like in the business world, it happens so many times that two people are together, the bosses, they work together. I also see this with like singers or whatever, and usually when it's two people, there's gonna be an end to it. And obviously with Torah and mitzvahs, there is a way to work together, but I'm just showing this to say that it's inside of ourselves at least, it's impossible to have two kings on us. And the question is, what are we going to do? Because, okay, we understand that there's one that needs to rule, but what are we going to do with the other one? Because, yeah, okay, I decide that I want to be a chassid and I want to do only Nefesh Elokis stuff, but I still have a Nefesh HaBahamis. And I can't move it away. I can't. Only tzaddikim get to kill the Nefesh HaBahamis, and that also has a whole journey to it. But like, you can't move it away. It's always going to be there. And two, if Hashem put the Nefesh HaBahamis there, there's for sure something that the Nefesh HaBahamis is there to do, right? It's not just there some people say it's like an obstacle, but it's not just an obstacle, it has a goal. So we want to understand what are the goals of what are the roles? What is the Nefesh Elokis' role, and what's the Nefesh HaBahamis' role? So we know that Dir B'Tachtainim is making a house for Hashem in this world, and there's a few ways to do that. There's a few places, not ways, places. There's the outer world that we need to do Dira B'Tachtanim in, to do Miftzayim and say a blessing on a cup of water, and all these things make the world a Dira B'Tachtanim. But also inside of ourselves, there's a Dira B'Tachtanim. Also inside of ourselves, when we do certain things, and which we'll talk about, we do a Dira B'Tachtanim inside of ourselves. Like, it's already like spoken in Chassidus so much that it says like Bechal Levavchem, and it says that the Beis HaMikdash needs to be in your heart too. Bekal Echad V'Echad Mekem, inside each and one of you, it needs to be internal. So it's not only about changing the outer world, but also changing the inner world. Again, how are we going to do this? And the Rebbe explains in the Sikha, in continuation to the question of how did Yosef's brother do this mistake, the Rebbe says that the key to this is bittul. The key to success, satisfaction, not feeling like you're fighting yourself is bittul, which is interesting because sometimes we see bittul as like submission, but like in a bad way. We see it as like pushing aside. But really, the Rebbe explains in the Sikha beautifully how this is really a key to a good and happy life. Let's understand how. So you remember we spoke about how Torah is compared to water? In the Sikha, the Rebbe says that it's not only compared to water to show the quality of food. We could have used a different word like, I don't know, bread. The pit was full of bread. But it talks about water also to show the way with which we need to come to learning Torah. The first thing that we need to do when we come to learn Torah is coming with bittul. And this is for a very simple reason. We are limited people. We have a limited brain. If we're not going to come to learning Torah with bittul, if we're going to try only using our brain and our understanding, we're never going to get to anything new. We're never going to get to anything revolutionary. Revolutionary things don't come from you talking about what you already know. It comes from something new. How is this new, unlimited godliness going to come into you if you are a limited person? So the key to this is the way that you're going to learn Torah. When you learn Torah with bittul, when you come to learning Torah with the understanding that you don't understand everything, there's like this famous quote that the only, I don't know the exact words, but like the only smart person is the person who knows that he will never know everything. And this is how we need to come to learning Torah and understand that this is not something that someone made up and we could fully grasp it and understand it and like we're the smartest, but we come and we know that this is something unlimited and we won't be able to understand everything. And we come to learning Torah that way, we actually understand much more than we thought. I really see this on myself when I come to learning Chassidus with like all my like prior knowledge and I'm like, yeah, I'm so smart, I'm so good. I end up like going in circles and never getting to anything new. But when I come and I'm like, I don't learn this to understand. I won't understand everything. I come to learn this, to connect to Hashem, then actually I get to also understand the things on a much deeper level. And I get to things that I never thought I will get to. So this is not only with learning Torah, but it's also with generally our relationship with Hashem is, first of all, commitment. First of all, bittul, that's the first thing. First it's skafia and then it's isapcha. And it's like that for a reason. Because we can only get to something if we have bittul. But we still don't understand what are the roles of the nefesh halikis and nefesh habahamis. So in Tanya it's explained that the role of the nefesh habahamis is actually to make us be able to live. If we only had a nefesh halikis, we would not fill our needs and we would pass away, I guess. And we want to deal also with the physical world, as we said, do a dira b'tachtanim. That's why we have a nefesh habahamis. There's a good example to this. I remember my father explaining this to me when I was very young and I was like so impressed. Now it's like obvious. But when we get a sting from an animal, it really hurts and it itches. Why does it itch? Because our body wants to show us that there's something wrong. We need to like deal with this problem in our body. And it's the same idea with the nefesh habahamis. The nefesh habahamis is really a tool of like living life. If we're hungry, we're going to feel hunger. The Nefesh HaBahamis is going to be like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And also, the Alter Rebbe explains that even more than this, when the Nefesh HaBahamis wants to eat, it shows that there is in this food sparks that you need to elevate. So in a deeper way also, as we said before, the Nefesh HaBahamis has a goal which is more than that. Problem is that the Nefesh HaBahamis has no limit. The Nefesh HaBahamis comes from Eilam HaTayu, and the Nefesh HaBahamis does not know how to stop. It just knows eat, 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 eat till you throw up. And it doesn't really have a limit. And we see that when we go only with the Nefesh HaBahamis, we never get satisfied. And this is for a reason, because the Nefesh HaBahamis is a tool, but this tool has a big force to it. Now, the Nefesh Elokis is really our identity. That's who we are. We are Yidden. That's like the deepest thing of us, as the famous Sikha explains, and we're not going to get into it, but like that's why we are able to do Mesiras Nefesh, which is such a like impossible and against nature thing to do, because the deepest part of us is our Nefesh Elokis, and that's who we are. And the Nefesh Elokis, though, doesn't have as a strong of a force as the Nefesh HaBahamis. That's why Hashem gave the Nefesh HaBahamis a big force, so we could actually be happy and like live Torah and mitzvahs who we are, like what we are. I'll explain this better. But this is what it says about in Tanya. It also says that I'll read it inside. It says, Ad shetispashet gam l'chalal hasmali. It talks about the nefesh elokis that will also go to the chalal hasmali, to the left side of our heart, where our nefesh habahamis is. Le'eskaf yal sitra achra yisaid hamayim harayim sheba. It will take the waters of the nefesh habahamis. In a different place in Tanya, it says that waters is tavas hatainugim. Waters represent like pleasure. And will take the pleasure of the nefesh habahamis. Shehiya tava shemiklipas naiga. This comes from klipas naiga. L'shanaisa u'le'afcha metanogei olam hazeh le'avas Hashem k'mo shekasav b'chol levavecha b'shnei yitzarecha. So it will take this love from the nefesh habahamis, this force, this crazy power, and it will flip it to love Hashem, to the love of Hashem. And this is like a crazy concept. That's why the nefesh habahamis has a big force to it, because the only goal is not only for it to make us live, but also to take the love and the passion for life and for materialistic things to love Hashem. I had a good example for this. It's like in the Israeli army, when you see on shlichus and when you talk to people, you give out neshek in Israel and you talk to like soldiers, they tell you stories, you see that the most successful soldiers are actually the ones that in terms of personality are more like the crazy kid, like the ADHD one, the ones that usually in school didn't do so good. When they come to the army, they're actually very, very good soldiers, and they become heads and like masters, and they become like very important things. And this is because they take this power and they have bittul to their heads in the army. And when they do that, they use all of their force that they have naturally for like against the system, and they use it within the system. And that's really dir betachtanim inside of ourselves. When we do this, we don't have that conflict anymore, because you're using both the nefesh elokis and the nefesh habahamis. You use this crazy force and the nefesh elokis, which tells you who you are and what this force needs to be used for. The thing is that for that, really bittul is key. Now, I didn't say this before, I forgot, but why does water really represent bittul? Because water comes from a high place to a low place, and it stays like the same thing. And this is Torah, which comes from a high place to a low place, and the low place is us standing in the world, limited human beings, and to get this water, we need bittul. So really, the thing that we need in life to have fulfillment and success and really live life in like a good way is to have bittul to Hashem. That's also answering our first question of how did Yosef's brother do that big mistake. they were big Torah learners, and they had like a lot to them. They were very big people. Their only problem was that they didn't have bittul. And that's how they came to make that mistake. When you don't have bittul, you're not aligned with what Hashem wants, and you might do mistakes with your limitedness. And one time my teacher said this thing, and it was very interesting. She said, when are we happy? When are we satisfied? When is a person like, wow, like my life is good? It's when they feel aligned with themselves, with who they are. And who we are, as we said, is the Nefesh Elokis. So the first thing before we start acting in the world is knowing who we are and what's our goal. And that's the Nefesh Elokis. And then the Nefesh Habahamis under it could act and will ride on it to do crazy things. And this answers really all our questions. That's how we don't get to do mistakes in Avos Yisrael, because we're aligned with our goal. We know what's our thing. And that's how also we could live a satisfying life where we feel that Torah is good for us. And obviously, again, as I said before, this does not mean to go away from the world. The opposite. On the contrary, to work with the world. But because you know what's your goal, you never get confused. This is like one time Bachrim did miftzayim in like Israel in like a mall, and someone came and asked, I don't know if he asked like one of them or one of the rabbis of them, like how do they do miftzayim? This is horrible. Like they see like not tznius people all over the place, like on big pictures and posters. And the Bachrim were like, oh, we didn't even realize the picture was here. When you have a goal, then even if things come your way, it never confuses you because you know what's your goal. And I feel like nowadays, because it comes from a good place, we want to help other people and we don't want to be overwhelming. People are confused anyway, and people have a hard life anyway, a lot of like emotional things. We act with a lot of chesed, which is really good. We like help people and whatever, but sometimes we confuse that with what's really our goal. And I feel like it's like the opposite. Like that's going to help them actually. Knowing the goal is going to help them be satisfied and help them be happy. And try it in your own life. Let's see if it works. Thank you for listening. And this really shows us the quality of water and Torah and l'chaim l'chaim.
Before I joined the Chidon, I used to look at the bookshelf full of Sfarim and think, that's not for me. When I opened a Sefer for the first time, my entire self-image changed. I suddenly realized, Torah is something that's available to me, something I can connect to. It opened up a whole new world.
I joined a course with Batsheva Learning Center because I wanted to take my learning to the next level. I got to grapple with the text on my own with curiosity, depth, and rigor.
I took responsibility for my own learning. It was life-changing.
Joining the Beis Midrash and being in a room full of women dedicated to investing in their own learning is a transformative experience.
I feel like I'm part of something bigger than myself, preparing for a world whose common language is Torah.
It starts with a single drop. It ends with the power of an ocean.